Variables. You might have encountered these during your math classes, and in programming they have a very similar function: to store a value. The difference being, this value can change while the program is running. Each variable has a unique name or identifier, meaning each variable has to be different and unique from each other. But you can't just name a variable however you feel like. There are restrictions on these variable names. And these are: they must start with a letter or underscore, and it cannot start with a number. It can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscores. And variables are case sensitive. So this variable right here is not the same as this variable right here. And you might be thinking, that's a lot to take in. Well, there's more. Each variable stores one specific data type. And a data type is, well, a specific type of data. I know, mind-blowing. And the first data type we have are integers. A variable with the integer data type only stores whole numbers, so it can't store any other type of data. It can only store whole numbers. So let's get to this first example. So what we'll want to do is go into our Python IDLE, and we're going to create a brand new file, and here's where we're going to create our integer variable. So you can name it whatever you want, just according to the rules that we've laid out before. And I'm going to call this integer 1. And to assign a variable in Python, you assign it with an equal sign. So you first write the identifier and then give it an equal sign. And then you would use any whole number that's an integer. So for example, you can say 100, 2, 3, it doesn't matter, make it whatever you like. And then if you've watched the previous video, you'll remember the function we called print, and it will basically print whatever we put in between these two brackets. So what we're going to do is we're going to print integer 1, and if you press here run module, and we're going to save this, we'll save this as variables and run this, we'll notice we have an error. And the error is just something I wanted to make sure that you're able to see if you have an error in your program. You have to name this the exact same. So something you need to make sure, just type this the exact same, so there should be no errors. Okay, so now if we run and save, now we'll see that we have our value printed. So that's how integers work. You just assign them using an equals operator. The second data type is a float, and a float data type stores numbers. The only difference here is it doesn't store whole numbers. It stores a number with a decimal place. So let's get to the float example. So the second data type we're going to go over is floats. We're just going to create a brand new variable. So press enter and call this float 1. And to create a float, you'll need to give it a decimal point, so we can say 7.21, and we'll print this as well. So we'll say float 1. So there are two ways to define a float. So the first one is by giving an integer a decimal point. So as you see here, we have 7.21. But the second way is if you have an integer, let's say 4, what you can do is write out float and enclose the integer with curly brackets, and if you run it, it's turned into a float. As you can see, we have the decimal points 0.0. So that's how floats work in Python. The third data type we're going to go over today is a string, and a string contains any combination of alphanumeric and special characters, and this text is enclosed by single or double quotation marks. So let's get to the string example. Our third data type is strings, and if we go to our code and press enter, we're going to call this string 1. And as I said, to define a string, you either enclose your text in double or single quotation marks. And what I would advise is to use double quotation marks, because if I'll write a sentence now: do not use single quotation marks. So you can use double or single, but the reason I do advise towards double is if you were to write this as a single and wanted to turn this to don't, you'll notice that you can't use apostrophes in your code, or not your code but your text. So using double apostrophe just makes this a lot more easier to add single quotation marks. But regardless, you can do this however you want. I'll just keep single quotation marks and break the laws of grammar right here, and I'll print string 1. And then if you want to run it without doing all this, just press on F5 and click OK, and now we'll have don't use quotation marks. The final data type we're going to go over today is a Boolean, and a Boolean can only store one of two values, true or false. So let's get to that example. And the final data type is Boolean. So this is not that hard to define. You just write Boolean, and you can actually, just a disclaimer in case you didn't know, you don't have to say string 1 or string 2. You can call this whatever, it doesn't matter. If you want to identify it, you use an equal to sign, and we'll say equals to true. And then if we print, and just to make sure we get this right, we can just copy this and paste it, and F5, press OK, will output true. Now you can output true or you can output false, and we'll run that, and then we'll get the value false. And that's the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe and turn on that post notification so you don't miss the next video. We will be going over lists, and you'll learn what that is in the next video. See you. Peace.